They laughed at the tattoo until the SEAL commander saluted her and everyone froze. The airport terminal buzzed with the usual noise of rolling suitcases, overhead announcements, and travelers rushing to catch their flights. It was late afternoon, and the departure hall was crowded with civilians, soldiers, and tourists moving through security lines and waiting areas. Near Gate 18, a group of Navy SEALs sat together in a cluster of chairs. Their gear bags were stacked neatly beside them, and their posture made it clear they were professionals even when off duty. Most people walking past had no idea who they were, but their presence carried a quiet intensity. The team had just returned from a long overseas deployment and were waiting for their connecting flight to a naval base on the West Coast. Among them was Commander Daniel Cross, a respected SEAL officer who had led dozens of successful missions over the past 15 years. He sat quietly reviewing something on his tablet while the younger operators joked and talked nearby. Across the terminal, a young woman stepped into the waiting area carrying a worn canvas backpack. She looked like any other traveler. Her dark hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and she wore simple jeans, boots, and a gray hoodie. But there was one thing that caught people's attention almost immediately. A tattoo ran along the side of her neck, disappearing beneath the collar of her hoodie. It was bold and striking, a black design of wings surrounding a trident. The tattoo was large enough that anyone sitting nearby could see it clearly. And in an airport filled with people, it stood out. As the woman approached the empty seats near the SEAL team, a couple of the younger operators noticed it. One of them nudged the other. "Hey," he whispered, "check that out." The second SEAL looked over. He saw the tattoo immediately. The design looked oddly familiar, but the placement made it look more like a fashion statement than anything official. He smirked slightly. "Probably some Instagram tattoo," he muttered. Another SEAL leaned forward to look. "Yeah, I've seen people copy military designs before." One of them laughed quietly. "Imagine getting a trident tattoo without earning it." The woman sat down 2 rows away from them and pulled out a small notebook from her backpack. She didn't seem to notice the whispers, or maybe she simply ignored them. The SEALs continued their conversation quietly. One of the younger operators leaned back in his chair and shook his head. "That tattoo's almost the exact Navy trident design," he said. "People do that all the time," another replied. "They think it looks cool." A few of them chuckled. But Commander Cross suddenly looked up from his tablet. He had heard the last part of the conversation. His eyes shifted toward the woman sitting across the waiting area. For a moment, he studied the tattoo carefully. Then his expression changed. He slowly stood up. The younger SEALs noticed immediately. "Sir?" one of them asked. Cross didn't answer. He simply walked across the terminal floor toward the woman. The casual noise of the airport continued around them as travelers moved between gates and coffee shops. The woman was still writing something in her notebook when she sensed someone standing in front of her. She looked up. Commander Cross stood there silently for a moment. His eyes moved briefly to the tattoo on her neck again. Then something unexpected happened. He straightened his posture and raised his hand in a crisp, formal salute. The movement was sharp and unmistakable. Several nearby travelers noticed instantly. But the reaction from the SEAL team was even more dramatic. The younger operators froze in their seats. None of them spoke. Because a Navy SEAL commander does not salute casually, especially not in public. The woman looked at him calmly for a moment. Then she stood up and returned the salute. The motion was precise, professional, and practiced. The nearby SEALs stared in stunned silence. One of them whispered quietly, What just happened? The woman lowered her hand. Commander Cross relaxed his posture slightly. It's been a long time, he said respectfully. The younger SEALs were now completely confused. They looked back and forth between the commander and the woman. One of them finally stood up and walked closer. "Sir," he said carefully. Cross glanced back at his team. "You boys were just laughing at that tattoo." The operator immediately felt uncomfortable. He looked down to the floor. "We didn't mean—" Cross raised a hand slightly to stop him. Then he looked back at the woman. "This is Lieutenant Maya Reyes, former Naval Special Warfare." The words hung in the air. The younger SEALs stared at her. "But that's not possible," one of them said quietly. Reyes tilted her head slightly. "Why not?" The soldier hesitated. "Well, because—" He didn't finish the sentence. Cross spoke instead. "She served as a combat intelligence liaison during 3 joint operations with SEAL teams overseas." The younger operators exchanged stunned looks. Cross continued. "She's the reason my entire platoon walked out of Kandahar alive in 2012. Now the group was completely silent. The airport noise seemed distant compared to the shock spreading through the small group. One of the operators looked at the tattoo again. "This is real?" Reyes nodded slightly. "It was given to me by the team after that mission." Another SEAL whispered quietly, "They gave you the trident?" Cross answered, "Not officially, but every man on that team agreed she earned it." The younger operators now looked deeply embarrassed. One of them stepped forward. "Ma'am, we didn't know." Reyes smiled faintly. "That's okay." She picked up her backpack again. Most people in the terminal had no idea what had just happened. To them, it looked like a normal conversation between travelers. But the SEAL team knew better, because in their world, respect is earned through actions, not appearances. And sometimes the people who look the most ordinary have the most extraordinary stories behind them. Commander Cross glanced at the departure board. Their flight was beginning to board. He looked back at Reyes. "Heading home?" he asked. She nodded, for the first time in a while. Cross extended his hand. "It was an honor serving alongside you." She shook it firmly. "The honor was mine." As she walked toward the opposite terminal corridor, the younger SEALs watched quietly. One of them finally spoke. "I guess we judged that one wrong." Cross picked up his bag. "Yes," he said calmly, "very wrong." And for the rest of the walk to their gate, not a single member of the team made another joke about the tattoo.